Hello, nerdy romantics. We are talking The Mandalorian and Grogu today. So we are in Star Wars mode, y'all. Oh my gosh, we are being total nerds today. I'm so
Love
happy
it.
about this. So we are talking about the movie. We will probably spoil the movie because y'all know how we do.
Mm.
And because of the nature of the movie, which we'll talk about, we will probably spoil the TV show as well a little bit. I think we might. So, once you have seen the movie The Mandalorian and Grogu and the TV show The Mandalorian, which is on Disney Plus, the TV show is at the moment. The movie is still in theaters at the time of this recording. Spoiler alert. Stick around. This is going to be an interesting discussion. This is the Nerdy Romantics Podcast, and I'm your host, Y.M. Nelson. Okay, how's everybody doing today?
So good. I'm so happy to talk about this.
Yeah.
Fun.
All
Great.
right. So everybody, we have on
Here.
today Marcie, Jen, and Staci to talk Mandalorian and Grogu. Now, y'all know that I'm a huge Trekkie and I can really nerd out with you on that. For Star Wars, not so much. Now, it doesn't mean I don't have a respect for it, y'all. It's not that kind of thing. We're not just because we're Trekkies, we're hating on Star Wars. We don't do that. We're just straight up nerds here. But, yeah. But I will say it's been a while since I've watched some of these, and I have not watched all of the Star Wars canon that's out there now.
I got
But
you back.
okay, all right.
I got you.
I will
I,
try with the help of my guest host here. I will try to break down a little bit of where Mandalorian is in this whole thing and what the whole Star Wars thing is all about. So, on the Disney Plus app, just in case you wanted to nerd out about Star Wars, there is an actual timeline. So, as you probably know, the Star Wars franchise actually is starting with episodes 4, 5, and 6. Those were the ones that were done in 70s/80s. So, episodes 4, 5, and 6, three movies, and they are actually in the middle of the timeline, or actually sort of closer to the end of the timeline for Disney Plus. So there's a lot of things that happened before that are interspersed in here, and then there's some things that happen after. For purposes of this show, The Mandalorian, the TV show, in the timeline happens right after episode 6, which is Return of the Jedi. All
mhm.
right. So that's why we see the huts. That's why, there's a little turmoil going on because what happens in 4, 5, and 6, the Empire, those are the bad guys, y'all. That's Darth Vader and all. Those are the bad dudes. The Empire is trying to take over everything. This is very simplified explanation, and y'all help me out if I'm not saying something that I should be saying.
You're doing great.
But okay, the Empire, the bad guys, are trying to take over the galaxy, and the rebels who have been trying to hold on to it in A New Hope, the rebels, which are the good guys, that's, Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia, all the good guys, are trying to keep the Empire from taking everything over. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the Return of the Jedi, we have this big, fight. The Hutts are involved. The Hutts are kind of on the bad side. All right. So that's why we have that's why you'll see in the Mandalorian, the Hutts are like, everybody's looking at them like, what?
Mm-hmm.
They're on the bad side because they're crime dudes. Well, they're
Yeah.
crime folks. And
They
so
are
they're like,
crime lords.
big time.
Big
And
time.
so, it just pays to be on the side with the Empire. But the Empire does get defeated in Return of Jedi. So now we are in this kind of precarious position. We have this new republic that's kind of shaky. For those people who are Trekkies out there, you're probably thinking DS9, where, the Bajoran have just, beaten up the Cardassians and pushed them out, but the Bajoran Empire is kind of shaky. So that's kind of where we are in this
Mm-hmm.
Mandalorian era. We're in this little shaky New Republic kind of era where we're trying to hold up this good government, but there's still imperial guards out there. That's the Empire. There's some loyal Empire people still there, and there's some
Mm-hmm.
other, stuff that's in place to try to keep the man down, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a little bit of a spoiler for the Mandalorian TV show. So the Mandalorian had their own world when this whole Empire, Rebel, all this fighting was going on. Their world got decimated,
Mm-hmm.
irradiated. And so they were kind of scattered. And
Mm-hmm.
the Mandalorian that we know, who's played by Pedro Pascal, we love him.
Mm-hmm.
We love him. He is kind of like a bounty hunter. He's bringing in people, he's not really working for the New Republic
Mm-hmm.
in the Mandalorian show. He's just bringing in bad people because he needs some money and because he can do it. And along the way, he finds this little child. We call him the child in the Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
And he has to bring this child back to the Jedi, his people, and ends up just befriending this child. It's like a father son kind of relationship going on.
Oh,
It's
exactly.
a,
Yeah.
yeah, totally is. And so basically, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
things happen that I don't want to spoil the Mandalorian too much, even though I feel like I already kind of have. But the Mandalorian and Grogu develop this whole relationship where they're going out and they're doing their own things right now. They're going out and helping the New Republic
Mm-hmm.
in this movie. And so that is where we are with this movie. The Mandalorian and Grogu are together
Mm-hmm.
helping bring in people for the New Republic.
Yeah,
So
like
have I
bounty
got all
hunters.
this?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
they're
like
essentially
bounty
like
hunters,
bounty
but
hunters looking for the
mm-hmm.
bad guys. And it's great because they have this deck of cards that are with different bad guys on it. And that's something that's pulled out of World War II. They had playing cards in World War II that were handed out and they had all the top evil Nazis that were on there so that people would learn to recognize them in case they came across them, somewhere while they're fighting or while they are just in a town, sitting in a pub or wherever. So, yeah, so I thought that was kind of fun that they brought that together. That those are the people that are being hunted. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really cool. And not the only time that they have something
Mm-hmm.
that is very closely political to what we got going on. But now that we've kind of got a lay of the land, per se, did I get all that right, y'all? At least
Mm-hmm.
for what you kind of know or understand? Okay.
You're doing great.
But okay, great, great. I wanted to kind
Mm-hmm.
of get that out there because I know with the Trek shows, sometimes I just start talking and I know people are like, what? So at least here we get a little bit of the lay of the land. So let's talk about this particular movie, The Mandalorian and Grogu, and let's get into some of our review stuff that we usually do. So, how did you find this movie? What are your first impressions? Were you looking out for it? Was it a surprise? All that kind of thing. So, Stacy, what about you? How did this get on your radar?
Oh, it got on my radar just because of you. That was the
Oh,
only
oh,
reason
okay.
it got on my radar. I mean, I watch it. I mean, I watched The Mandalorian when it's on Disney. I'll watch it, but it wasn't something that I'm like, okay, I can't wait for it to come out. It's not. It wasn't something like that. So when you mentioned that, okay, there's going to be a movie, at first I thought, oh, it's going to be on Disney Plus, and it's like, no, it's going to actually be in the theater, and I was like, okay, I'll go ahead and watch it. But it was really because of you putting that out there because for that. Back in the day, I used to be a big Star Wars fan, and I still like it, but I've kind of not been watching it. It's not like I used to be. Like I used to. Oh, I watched you know, all the episodes of it. All the movies, and then I would watch them. I didn't. Once I got older, I stopped getting into it. So about the Clone Wars and the cartoons for it, and all that kind of stuff. But I did watch Mandalorian, and I did like some of the stuff that was after, like I said, Return of the Jedi, and seeing what's happening in this post world of where the Empire is falling, but it's not quite falling because there's still pockets of the Empire out there that's still in power. And I did like the concept of the Mandalorian because when you watch it, you don't really need to know all the things about the history of Star Wars to get the Mandalorian. It's helpful for some of it because you're like, well, why is this world doing, but you don't really need to have all of it, like the Hutts. I mean, I knew about the Hutts because of Return of the Jedi or
Mhm.
Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi because we know about Jabba the Hutt.
Right.
But unless you watch like the Clone Wars to hear more about the Hutts, you really wouldn't know more about the Hutts about that. But you knew it's a big crime syndicate and a great big crime family. But this whole new part of it, I like the fact that you didn't have to be a fan to watch the movie and potentially enjoy the movie.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. Marcy, what about you? How
Hmm.
did you find this one? What did you think? Was it on your radar? What was going on?
So I actually found it because my mom wanted to see it. She had seen a trailer somewhere, probably YouTube. And so my mom had wanted to see it because I am one of those people that Stacy was talking about where I haven't watched everything. I think I've seen the first season of The Mandalorian. I've seen all the old movies, and I think I probably got up to, let's call it Phantom Menace, shall we? Let's call it that. So I don't have I haven't seen everything that's out there. I haven't seen any of the cartoon versions. I actually don't know about the Clone Wars. I don't think unless they came before Phantom Menace. I know that I like Phantom Menace, but beyond that, I stopped kind of following. So I agree with Stacy that I had enough awareness that I knew what who the Huts were. I knew who Jabba was, so I was interested and invested in his family and what was happening there. I've seen enough of the Mandalorian to understand where we were, and but there wasn't so much of it, so much history that I needed to know to actually follow the movie. And so I appreciated that because sometimes you do have to be deeply immersive to get it all and the Easter eggs even if I missed them, I still could understand the movie. And so I think I really appreciated that about the way that it was made. I also thought that it was going to be on Disney Plus at first too. I didn't realize it was really in theaters until my mom was like, "Hey, I want to see that," and I was like, "Well, watch it on the Disney Plus." She was like, "No, it's at the movies," and I was like, "Oh, okay, well, there we go." So that's kind of my journey there, and what I liked about it was that you didn't have to know everything Star Wars to watch it, and you could still get the vibe of the Mandalorian and Grogu and who they were. There was enough of their visits to the trading post to understand kind of the Republic and what that was kind of like. You could kind of get a feel for that, and then they gave you enough of the Hut underworld to really like rope you in.
Yeah,
So
agreed. Jim, what about you? How did you find this one? Were you anticipating it? Are you a big Star Wars fan? What was going on there?
I am a big Star Wars fan. I've seen all the movies. I've seen all the live action series. I've seen most of the cartoons. So this one was absolutely on my radar and something I was really looking forward to seeing what they were going to do, where they were going to take Mandalorian's story, what they were kind of how they were gonna work with Grogu and what that was going to look like. So I was ready for it, 100%.
All right, cool. So for me, I was not ready for it. I wasn't ready for it at all, y'all. Didn't even know that it was coming out because as my guest hosts know, like I had sent out the whole podcast calendar. This was not on the calendar. And I had just added it to the calendar like about a month ago. So there you go. But as far as history with Star Wars, personally, I've watched episodes 4, 5, and 6, which is the first movies that were made. I watched some of episodes 1, 2, and 3. So Marcie was talking about the Phantom Menace. That's episode 1. And when Disney Plus and Hulu came together, then I started watching some of the shows. But I have not watched a lot of the shows. I have seen a lot of commentary on the shows. And I know big Star Wars fans out there, y'all mad about the Acolyte. I know that. Y'all are mad, which makes me want to watch it just so that I can be mad with you. Once I got the Disney app and saw some of the shows, I also ended up watching episodes 7, 8. I have not watched episode 9 as I'm looking at it, but definitely 7 and 8. So we know Kylo Ren and Finn and all of those folks from that. So I kind of have jumped around with this particular franchise, but loving this franchise. But what I really love about this franchise and can't let go of is the Mandalorian. I really wish that they had some more of the Mandalorian, and I thought they ended it before we saw some things that I kind of wanted to see. But they did end it, and they didn't just cancel it, right?
Hmm.
The season 3 had an actual end to it, for
mhm.
those who are concerned or whatever. Season 3 did have an actual end. But what I also like about this movie is it feels like this is like season 4, y'all. It feels
Hmm.
like it just picks right back up from where season 3 ended. In the spot where it ended, where we see the beginning, where we see them go to the trading post,
Hmm.
we see all of that in the very beginning.
Mhm.
It picks right up. And to
Hmm.
me, this is almost like, okay, so 3 months later, blah, 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 which is what I like. And it does a lot of focusing on the Mandalorian and Grogu. So, what did y'all think about where this movie picks up and these characters? Let's talk let's just talk story first before we talk about Mando and Grogu, who, oh my gosh, is the cutest Jedi ever. So there we go. Yeah. So Marcy, what did you think about like story picking up? Can we follow it? Pacing? Was it a good story? What did you think about it?
I thought it picked up in a good place. I thought we could follow it. I kind of enjoyed the story of
Yeah, we already said
the
spoilers.
we said
But
spoilers,
I
right?
will say it again here, just in case.
of the
You were
hut who.
following along and you were listening to the whole backstory of Star Wars. We are getting into the movie here, so spoiler alert again here, everybody. So, yeah. All right, Marcie, continue.
So I enjoyed the hut who didn't want to be a hut storyline. I kind of I like where they went with that. I think it was interesting. I didn't expect that, and it gave me how I explain it. I don't know. It gave me a little bit of Total Recall, and it gave me a little bit of the Hulk in the arena. Like I got all these kinds of, and so it was familiar, but also different enough that I was really invested in the story. I couldn't really tell if he was a good guy or a bad guy. There were all these questions on the table, and so I did enjoy especially that part of the plot line, the twist of what was his family's real motive for picking him up, and once he finds out, what does that mean for Mando and being a person of honor and that kind of thing. And so I think I enjoyed that the way that they told the story and the way it unfolded. I do think that something you said earlier was a gift and also maybe a curse, is because it did seem like season 4, and so part of the time I was like, I
Yes.
could have watched
Yeah.
this at home, but also there were some big scenes that made it worth being seeing it on a big screen. So I think that that's probably the one thing I think that they had to overcome, and I think they did it, but it was the difference between feeling like a motion picture and feeling like season 4 of the Mandalorian. And so I think that was the one thing that they had to do. I think because of the big fight scenes with the hut and the all that, I think they pulled it off, because I do think some of that was just amazing to see on a giant screen. But like when you see Star Wars, and like when they were going in to rescue the Ewoks in,
Return of the
was that
Jedi.
Jedi?
Return
Yeah,
of the
that was
Jedi.
Return of
When
the
they went into
Jedi.
the Ewok
Yeah.
village. Was that was Jedi, yeah. So I think that was another part of it. I got those vibes, right? I got those reminders of the rest of the story and the things that were happening in other places, and all of that. So I think from that perspective too, it was a good movie, especially if you're someone like me who remembers those movies, hasn't caught up with everything, but jumped back into the universe for a minute. I think they did it. I mean, it was fun. I was invested. I was invested when they were in the ring. I was invested when something happened. I was invested when
Hmm.
somebody was down bad. Like they did manage to pull me in and engage in the
Jen, what
story, and I
about
think that
you?
was fun.
What did you think about this particular storyline and everything going on there?
There was a lot for them to work with here in terms of continuing the relationship with Mando and Grogu, seeing their relationship sort of evolve into he was just a young child and now kind of has some command of his powers, but he is still a child, and I like that they added in the just some humorous elements of of that, and I also yeah,
Yes.
fun,
Oh,
yeah,
he
Like the
loves
snacking
snack
his
thing
little
is
feast.
snack.
continued, which is
Snack feast.
fabulous, but there was that part where he's trying to tell him to start up the ship, and Mando is like giving him directions over, and
Yeah.
and Grogu is just kind of like pushing a
He's like,
button, like the
Yeah.
rest of us would. You're listening to him, go on about the technical elements of this
yeah,
versus that, and it's like it's
yeah,
next to this, and I don't know what any of those things are, and so you kind of Grogu, and they did such a good job.
Right.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's the
You know the
thing.
thing I told you not to touch.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you know the thing I
That
told you not to
that's the one.
touch. Touch it. It was
So
such
I
a
thought that
father
was
son
fantastic,
moment.
and of course he goes straight to the red button. We all know what the red button does. So,
Right.
so I appreciated that, and I
Yeah.
and I thought it was also kind of great that they brought in the Anzellans, which are those little
Yes.
mechanic, that mechanic sort of group that
Yes.
comes and follows him and saves him, because I thought that was a really nice sort of connection with Grogu, because Grogu is like he's this little tiny guy, and and it can be a little weird on the gigantic screen, right, in the movie theater, to feel like he's really a part of the story, that he's not just a toy that gets carried around. And so having giving him some other characters that were the same size, I felt like gave him a little bit more to do and made him into a little bit more of a character. And I was in the same boat though as Marcie in terms of thinking about Rada and whether he was somebody that was ultimately going to, was he there to betray Mando? Was he going to betray his family? The first time we see him, he's in a cage, and so you do kind of have to, and he wants to stay there. So you do kind of have to wonder: is he, what is the game that he's playing? And so I appreciated that was really kind of, it really, that mystery held on until you got pretty late in the show, when you found out when you really figured out which, what he was fighting for, and what parts of the things that he was saying were actually really important to him. So I thought that was great.
Yeah. I like that they held on to that for as long as they could too, because to me that was like the most intriguing. And of course, you don't want to root for him in the beginning, but then it's like, he's a hut. Like,
Yeah.
we're not rooting for no crime syndicate man. We're not rooting for them. But
Right.
you just come to slowly root for him, and
Mhm.
the longer they hold on to that, the more you root for him. So that was genius that they did that.
Mm-hmm. So by the time they get to that cage match, you're like,
Right.
oh, it was the best cage match ever.
Right. So, Stacy, what about you? What did you think of the storyline? Should it be a movie? All this other kind of stuff. Yeah, that we would talk about. What did you think?
I mean, I'll agree that I thought this could have been at home. I didn't going to the theater for it. I'm not saying it wasn't a good movie. It was a good movie. It was just, and a good story. But I was like, you could have put this on Disney Plus, and we could have been just fine with it. Or at least I could have been just fine with it. I did like the fact that, again, like we bring in the Hutts, but I liked. Well, I can't say I liked Jabba the Hutt, but I mean when he was such a big part to me of Return of the Jedi, seeing his whole palace and stuff like that, and then hearing about his stuff about his family. Yeah, I heard about the twins before, and so as soon as he said that, this part was like, you need to get our nephew, because the twins were on. I was like, they're gonna kill him. That's all. I mean, I knew what they were gonna do as soon as he said rescue him, and I was like,
Yeah.
they want to be a Hutt. I mean, if they're like the Hutts, they are not worried about his safety. They need him out the way, and so I knew that going in. The fact that I knew that, but they still delivered in such a way that I was still interested in watching it. I mean, so it was a good story point. Now, once he got there, and I thought, oh, he was good, he might be a prisoner, and then find out, oh no, he's fighting, and then seeing him, I was like, it's a built Hut. I mean, it was that whole species. Just,
Yes.
I mean, he had to be doing some work.
Right?
Put some work in, because we
Yes,
we saw
yeah.
musculature, and I was like, really?
Right.
Because they show, when they go into the twins thing, you see other, I'm not sure what they call the species, because they're the Hutt family, but I forgot, I don't know the name of the species.
Hatties.
Of the species, Hatties.
Yeah.
But when you go through that, you are not seeing any built Hutts that, okay, he has been working at his craft for a minute. So he's serious about it, because that you actually see that, oh, he's serious about it from the get-go. And then when you hear what it's talked about, like he didn't want to be his father, which I guess, spoiler alert for those if you weren't learning, that whole point was that he didn't want to be his father. And once he starts saying that, and you're first like, is it really? But again, I've never seen any like the cartoons or anything after that, because you don't know that, oh, Jabba the Hutt had a whole family going on, or a concubine. I'm not sure about the situation on that side of it, but to see that his species or his group of people, that he wanted to be his own man, and he wanted to be better than who his father was, because he knew about the history of his father, and just seeing that and understand that he wanted something different. But also but that whole thing, seeing that and hit that growth there, and seeing that was really great. And And then when you see Grogu and Lando, the Mandalorian, their interaction, that father son, and it kind of, I'm not saying it reminds me a little bit of like Game of Thrones and Seven Kingdoms, and it's what I mean by that is it's part of a series, but it's so different than the series. It's in the universe, but it's different, and it's more like a buddy. Like if you said the Night of the Seven Kingdoms, it's like a buddy movie, kind of a thing with a young older guy and a young kid. Same kind of premise in this one. You have but it's more like a father figure, and kind of the same thing in it, but it's in that whole genre, but it's not really the whole lore of Star Wars. It's part of it, but it's not the whole thing. And that's why you don't have to have for either one of those, you don't have to have an understanding of the whole universe of it to get that particular the movie, or get that part this the particular movie. Seeing other species, which I like about when you see it, and they bring in these other species, and you be these other groups of people, or groups of species, or whatever you want to call it, of the little they were, I know I forgot what you said they were called, but the little Unkellans. So it reminds me of the Jawas
Yes.
from
Yes.
Tatooine. So you
First,
saw,
yes.
just see
First,
how a
I
group
thought
of,
they were the Jawas. So this.
well, I
this
knew
is
they
something
were,
else.
but
I thought they were,
but I like the fact that it brings in like another group, like like
Yes.
Ewoks and all that kind of stuff. But it brings in another group, and I like the fact that for a change, everything was Grogu size with them, versus because like when he was like escape to their spaceship, and he was like, where am I gonna go here? They're all like, we got here, we rescued you. And no one thought, you know what? He ain't gonna fit in here.
Yeah.
So what are we supposed to do about that? I mean, no one thought of beyond that. But for a world that's normally built to be, average human, versus Grogu and the rest of them size of it, it's like it was good to see they were in there crowded in there, and it looked like, and it was a spaceship, but it was just their size, and I really like that because it's like when they escaped, they were running. I was like, so how's he gonna get out of this? Do they have like? Because I was thinking, what do they have, like they're gonna put like a shield or something? How is he gonna get out of here with that? Because when he got there, it's like, did no one think about that that he's not gonna fit? But I did like the fact that but they are the ones who went off to find him. They're the ones who went out to get to rescue him, and they end up doing that. And then you see the after effects of him taking care of it, and all this because it was good, but it was also a slow enough pace that it felt like it's just a continuation of a series and not itself a movie in itself. Now, granted, it was good. It was still good, but it was because of that. I guess that's why I was like, I don't know, I can't say I'm underwhelmed, but it was like when I spent my money for this ticket, and I was like, this, how much it costs for a matinee now, and I was like, and now you when you go to movie theaters, I want boom, 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 because I'm spending boom, boom, boom cash to me. But it still was a good movie. I'm not saying it wasn't. It's just like, because of the cost, it's like, oh, you could have, this could have been on Disney Plus. We could have this money grab, but it was still good. But I did like, just
right.
But it still had some scenes that were really good just to play on the big screen, like Marcie said, the cage match. But also I liked the fight in the pit with the sneaky snake or whatever we're gonna call it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I liked. I really did like that. I mean,
was good.
It was a good movie. It was just that they did it so well, I guess, to be a continuation of the show, that it felt like you could have continued the show. I'm not sure. It could have continued on the show's level in a way.
Yeah.
But the overall story and plot, I mean, it was still it held my attention. So I can't say anything about that.
Right. Yeah.
I just feel like it needed another
agree with
battle.
that.
It needed like a big, like some sort of like big battle to like kind of justify the big screen. But I mean, there were lots of like blaster battles and running from stuff and hand to hand combat, that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I think I like the on the big screen. I want big space battle things happening.
Yes.
And yeah,
Now maybe
right.
it was better if I went to a, was it a, what they call it? Not a 3D, something, not an IMAX, but
Like
the one where you
IMAX.
actually moving around and do the, if I'm actually chill and you
Oh
No.
get bored. I
yeah,
mean,
the
maybe
chair
that,
shakes when the.
if I'm spending my money for, because there are scenes where I could see I could be like that in it. That'll be worth me going to a movie theater, but then they'll probably charge $25 or $30 for this ticket, and I'm not doing all that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Jen, thanks. I said on Kellens, it's Anzellans. I think that's how they pronounce it. But yeah, I thought they were like at first I thought they were the Jawas from Tatooine, and season two. See, this is what happened. I went with Millard, who y'all met on You, Me, and Tuscany, that recording. So yes, I went with him to
Mm-hmm.
see Mando and Grogu, and I told him, I said, all you need to do is watch season two and you'll be good. But I noticed too that there were a lot of season three Easter eggs, and the Anzellans was one of those season three Easter eggs because they were helping to reconstruct some things without saying any spoilers there. And and the dynamic between Grogu and the Anzellans is so hilarious in season three.
Mhm.
They call him the bad baby. Like bad
Mm-hmm.
baby. And they did that here.
I think they called him that at the beginning. Yeah, they
Yes.
did. They called him that at first too, cause and Mando was
Right.
like, "You want to go play with them?"
Right, because he picks
And he
them
tells
up
him,
like pets,
"Yep,
because he's actually a little bit bigger than they
Yep.
are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so funny. I love that dynamic.
he
But
is."
the other thing that Millard said that everybody's kind of echoing here is that it wasn't that I didn't like Mando and Grogu. He liked it, but he thought it needed to be more Star Wars than what it was, which for him means big battles, because that's what Star Wars is about, y'all. Huge ships, big battles,
Mhm.
big
Mhm. Mhm.
explosions,
Yep.
Imperial troopers by the thousands all over the place. And we don't get that here. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Not by the tens. Yep. Yep. Cause even the big rescue brigade was like was like
Right.
Yeah.
They were
20
little
people, like,
ships.
or 20 ships, little ships. So I do think that when Jen was right, like I don't know why I thought
Mm-hmm.
that that one was
Right.
gonna be bigger.
And I
Yeah.
know, like,
Because maybe that's what confused me. Because I was like, the cavalry is coming, and then I realized that the cavalry was
Yeah.
coming, and
Yeah.
I was like, but they came.
yeah.
They were there, but yes, they were tiny. It's, and even the battle in the
Mhm.
beginning where they're fighting. This is just kind of precursor because Mando is trying to get this one guy, but because that was Imperial and they were
Mhm.
trying to fight back, and they had the big, tall, whatever walkers, they call them
Oh
something
yeah.
walkers. I
Mm-hmm.
thought it was
I,
that was
Oh
gonna be
yeah.
bigger than what it was.
Mhm.
But then you gotta
Mm-hmm.
think it's just Mando and Grogu that's going after him, so it can
Right.
only be so big. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I agree with everyone that it doesn't necessarily have that Star Wars level whole war kind of thing going on. Huge explosions, big battles, and because it feels so much like a
Mhm.
continuation of the show, that I would have totally been fine if this was the show.
mm-hmm.
And the other thing that I thought
Mhm.
too
Yep.
is, because he was saying it wasn't as Star Wars, to me, it's a little more, because I was telling him this, to me, it feels a little more Star Trekky than Star Wars to me. Because with Star Wars, you've got the big groups
Yeah.
fighting each other, right? With
Right.
Star Trek, we're following people that we're rooting for somewhat. but we're following them and meeting people, and they're
Interesting.
going through things, right?
Yeah.
So this is
Yeah.
kind of feeling like a Trek adventure a little bit, because we're following Mando and Grogu as
Mhm.
they're going to different worlds and doing different things,
Yeah.
Well,
right?
I do have a question. Like you said, he felt it was not Star Warsy. It was not Star
And
Wars.
I
Does he watch any other, like, did he just watch the movies and not those?
He's just watched the movies, not necessarily watched the shows, which the shows
And I
are more
think
interior. Just
and
like
I
the
do think
Marvel
that's
shows. The
what
Marvel
probably,
shows are more
yeah.
interior. You
But I
know,
think that's the reason. If all you've done
yeah.
is watch the
mhm.
movies for Star Wars, and you watch,
Mhm.
and all you've done is watch the movies, but you didn't watch any. Because if you watch any of the shows, and granted, I'm not. I've watched the Mandalorian, and I've tried to watch some of the others, but I'm not as into it. They are not big booming things. They're
They're
more like
not.
the fall of the empire
Exactly.
and all these little pockets of what's going
Mhm.
on, but to keep it from
Yep.
to keep it from rising up,
Yep.
versus,
Exactly.
and some of them, and like some of the other movies were prequels, like the one that they had, like the prequel to Who Built the Death Star, that kind of stuff. Some of the
Right.
movies, but most of them are just after the effects, after the fall of the
Mhm.
empire, little pockets of people trying to live their life or try to make whatever. So it's not a lot of big battles as much as that. It's more like, at the very least, conspiracy theories or
Yeah.
trying to break this conspiracy that's going to happen so that it
Yeah.
doesn't grow back. So it's not.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
mean, if you only
Mhm.
watched the movies, then this would be a
Yep.
letdown. Like, this is not Star Wars enough. Versus, even though I haven't watched all of it, but I did watch The Acolyte and The
Mhm.
Mandalorian to understand it was not, to see enough that that it's not always going to be big, 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 boom, boom, boom. But at the same time, if you're gonna make it a movie, make it big, big, boom, boom. I
Right.
want to see
Yeah.
that.
Exactly.
Yeah. This happens at kind of an interesting little
Mhm.
place in the
Yep. Yep.
timeline, right? Because
Yes.
we are after Return of the Jedi, and then before Episode
Mhm.
uh, 7.
7. Yeah.
The name is escaping me, but it's going to come back to me here in a minute. But we
Yeah.
do have, because this is when the Republic.
No, A New Hope is
Of New
for
New
The
Hope.
For
Force
No.
The
Awakens.
Force Awakens. So this is when we are in kind of this
Right. No. Yeah.
moment
The
of
Force Awakens.
time,
Mhm.
because the Empire has been defeated, and there is, they've been defeated on a lot of different levels. They are We see a tiny little bit of them trying to sort of grab back onto some power,
Hmm.
but this is when there are not big there aren't big scary entities that are in this world yet. They will eventually come back, but they are not there yet. So we have this much smaller story about the crime syndicate, and how the crime how these guys kind of fill in with where there is uncertainty, where there are fewer laws, and a lot less supervision, if you will, where the republic has not grown big enough to be able to move in and have any level of control or visibility into what's happening. The empire has kind of gone away, so all of that, regimented rules and laws have gone by the wayside. Crime is going to take in wherever there's a vacuum.
Yeah.
We're going to get
Skyrocket.
And
some
then
we're
it's
going to
not
get
just
some
the
bad
crime
characters.
bosses, but it's like I said, the little bits of
Mhm.
the empire.
And
It's, you got to think about it, it's a galaxy, and they say a galaxy far, far away. We and it's like, so you have pockets of, like, the Imperial,
mhm.
fleet were here. Okay, well, maybe it's, across the galaxy they've ended. We might now have supplies that'll be coming in, but I still have my big camel, turtle, whatever things that are huge, going. I can
Right.
still rule my little area here until if the Republic doesn't come out here, I might be creating my own little,
Mhm.
dark side little empire right here, because there's no one to check me at this point.
Yeah.
And I mean, and you see how it failed, but it wasn't like the Titanic. It all kind of went and it sinks down. It was like, okay, part of it failed, but part of it still, we got these little bits of pieces in these different areas that are still, they're still active. They might not be thriving, but they're still active. And I mean, we see the Republic trying to take down those little parts
Mhm.
down so they don't grow to something more later on.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and so, I mean, I like But I mean, I like the fact
That
that,
reminds me.
I mean, that it kind of shows that it's not like, okay, once you win, that's it. No, you still have work
Right.
to do, and I think
Right.
what
There's
we see in these other
fallout. There's
shows,
aftermath.
there's always work to do. That you can't say turn the switch and now the dark side is gone. It's like, dude, they got into power by sneaking in. They can they can sneak back in if you give them enough chance. So I mean, I think I like the fact that they do show that it wasn't, once the end of Return of the Jedi, it was, and we have a new Republic, and it's just wonderful. It's like, no, it's not. You still got to work on all these people who were going for the Republic, and I mean, to be honest, we're going to talk about the current administration. Like, once a new thing comes in, it's not going to be just instantaneous. It's going to change over.
Right.
There are going to be
Right.
pockets of people that you would have to,
Mm-hmm.
battle, or, to
Right.
get back to what you truly want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And I think, the whole thing of Mando looking for someone, not knowing that he had found him, um, because he got distracted by the whole hut thing, and then he was, and what he was gonna promise, and then finding out that the huts were gonna double, like all that part right there, I think was a fun bit of intrigue. So I think, again, it clearly helps if more, because it means more to you. Because I hadn't delved that deep into any of the whole
Mm-hmm.
who can rise and who's gonna fall, none of that. But also, it was a good intrigue. It was a good intrigue. But I did say to my mom, "You can wait. Like, you don't get around so easy. You could wait until the movie came to you. You don't have to go to the movie." So
Mm-hmm.
I think for true fans and people who are into the lore, I think that it does deliver, to Jen's point, a lot of that space to think about all those things, and about where it is in the timeline, and what what's happening in all the little corners in the pocket. So I think that if you are a true
Mm-hmm.
fan, there was meat for you there. But if you're like me and you're a moderate viewer, it still was engaging enough for the pace. Stacy nailed it. The pace may have also been part of it. The pace never really seemed to pick up to a point of, I mean, he was down bad for what seemed like forever. It was, I mean, and it might not have been, but it seemed like days. Like, I know Grogu wasn't out there that long. Like, I know it's probably two night times, right? But it felt like that man had been down bad for, because when he finally got the guy, he was like, it might be too late. I was like, how could it possibly be too late? But at the
Hmm.
same time, it felt like it might have been, because it that part, while touching and gripping and whatever, the pace of that part
So much.
really slowed it
Yeah.
down
It,
there at a place where I felt like the build up had just built, and then he was in a tree trunk for like 20 minutes. I mean, it was a long time. It felt like, I
I
know
thought
it
it
was
was
really,
2 weeks
like,
that
what,
he
two
was
three
like,
night
why
times.
was he
Two night
solo?
times. He
You
got
know?
the stuff. He took the stuff. Right, and that's another thing. I was like, and I mean, he got up and took that bath, I guess, but there was a lot of things going on. But the point was that part, while endearing, and while it was great
mm-hmm.
to see little Grogu going out there and finding himself and finding his powers and doing the things, the pacing of that part really just, I was like, how long we gonna be under this tree? Like, I felt like that might have also been part of it, is that it was at the point where I thought the ramp up was happening, and then so we did like, and then, we
Yeah.
got here, and I was like, whew,
Yeah, I was thinking there's just
this is we have been
extending the
in the
time
woods
there
for a
for
very long
making
time, and
it
he's
justify making the movie.
Yeah. It
right,
was.
making it to a movie. Exactly, because I was like, we have been in these woods, and don't get me wrong, it was fun seeing the guy on the porch, and it was fun watching Grogu still try to steal a snack. It was, all those things were adorable, but to Stacy's point, I feel like some of that was to make it motion picture long. But I also feel like,
Yeah.
had I been sitting in my
They could
own
they could
home,
handle that differently. They really could have handled that
I
part
wouldn't have
differently.
minded.
We will continue this discussion on our next episode. Make sure you're subscribed to Nerdy Romantics Podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and visit nerdyromanticspodcast.com to subscribe to our newsletter, where you can get show notes directly in your inbox. Thank you for listening.